Hey everyone, welcome to the Leadership Locker. My name is Rich Cardona, and on this podcast, we dig through the lessons of today's most exceptional leaders to help you break through your barriers. If you're trying to progress your career, if you are trying to accelerate your entrepreneurial journey, which I know you all are, if you're looking to have a smoother transition out of the military because it is incredibly difficult, then you're in the right place. My guests and I are going to give you the tools and the resources to accelerate your curve, help you surge, and just crush it. So here we go. Hey everyone, in this episode of the Leadership Locker, my guest is Todd Connor. He's a friend, mentor, veteran, and he started a nonprofit called Bunker Labs. He's a CEO, and he has just amassed this amazing community in cities all over the country, partnered with WeWork, just doing amazing things. Now, why did I ask Todd on? I wanted to give you value, right? What's a nonprofit? If I'm getting out, and I don't know what a nonprofit is, or if I want to run my own business and I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I should have at least, the education on what the difference is between a nonprofit and an LLC is and why I should go either way. And that was my hope in having Todd on the show. This was at the Military Influencer Conference. Excellent episode. Please check it out. I'm actually going to ask you to introduce yourself first, Todd, because I always forget to do intros for the podcast.
Sure.
Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Todd Connor, and I'm the founder CEO of Bunker Labs.
And today, Todd, we're going to talk about nonprofits.
Yeah.
What they are, what it means, why would you do it, and why you would be why you would donate to them or whatever. And again, the purpose of this podcast, the Leadership Locker, is to just share influencer expertise, people like you, with the transitioning service member community and veteran entrepreneurs. But a nonprofit, we have all these different routes we could go when we want to get out. You and I have talked about entrepreneurship at length, and I love it, and I'm happy to be in an entrepreneurial space, but I actually don't really know what a nonprofit is, how it's organized, what it's about, and I think that's really valuable, so I wanted to talk about what it is, and we'll start right there.
Yeah. Well, I think it may be important to start about what it is not. Yeah. I think a lot of people think that when you get out of the military, or really, no matter what you're doing in life, if you want to do something that has an impact, which people do, they want to have an impact, they can think, I therefore should start a nonprofit. And starting a not-for-profit is a legal tax designation that says because of the charitable purpose of this legal entity, you're subject to sort of different taxation rules. That's it. And then it allows for donors to sort of donate to you and therefore also get derived tax benefit. But it is not the only vehicle available to do something impactful. So my starting point for people is like, I want to do something good in the world. It doesn't have to therefore mean I'm going to go start a not-for-profit. You can start a for-profit that's doing tremendous good in the world. Arguably, a for-profit with a sustainable business model that's having a positive impact in the world is arguably like a better way to have an impact in the world. So a not-for-profit is a way to do something charitable, but it's a legal status of a legal organization. And there are, by the way, organizations. There are 40,000 veteran not-for-profits, give or take, as designated by the IRS. So there are 40,000 people that have filed the legal paperwork to say we're a not-for-profit organization in the veteran space specifically, and I don't know what the numbers are for all not-for-profits, but it's a giant sector. Yes. And there are a lot of not-for-profits that I think are having huge impact, and there are probably some that are not having an impact in the same way. And so I really just want to distinguish the conversation of what is a not-for-profit, and we'll talk about what a not-for-profit is, from this idea of I want to have an impact in the world. Really, I think the right thesis for an entrepreneur is, here's the problem I'm trying to solve. And if you can solve that problem quicker, faster, better with a not-for-profit as the legal construct, then make it a not-for-profit. If you can solve that problem better, faster, quicker with a for-profit, then make the for-profit the legal construct. So like when we started Bunker Labs, for example, I was unclear as to what the legal model would be. Some folks thought this ought to be an incubator. You ought to have an equity investment that happens with companies. Some folks thought it should be a not-for-profit. Some folks thought it should be a membership organization.
So you didn't go into this thinking like this is going to be a
I
nonprofit.
did not. No, I came into this thinking I want to find a way to help veterans start businesses, and we'll find out. We'll literally discover what the right mechanism to do that is, and then we'll back into what the legal model is. And so, at one point we thought it would be a B Corp, which is this sort of hybrid entity, and then membership models have their own tax status designation, which I don't even know what it's called, but like dues paying organizations have their own legal model. So I thought it could be that, it could be B Corp. So it was discovered, right? So this idea of legal model as discovered is sort of odd, but I would say that's how it was for the Bunker Labs, and I don't think that that's entirely uncommon. I will say this, and then we can talk more about not-for-profits. Not-for-profits, as compared to for-profits, are a more complicated enterprise because it's a three-sided marketplace. You've got the people that you're serving. So military veterans, military spouses, active duty for us who are trying to start businesses. Those are our clients. And then you have the people that are paying for it. Your sponsors, the logos on the wall, right? The people that have a shared interest in serving that community, and they are giving you resources to express as a strategic goal of theirs the opportunity to help and impact a community. So you have to make them happy, not make them happy. You have to serve their strategic interests. You have to serve the strategic interests of the entrepreneurs, but you have to do both. And there's some not-for-profits that I think do a great job of serving their donor base, but perhaps under-deliver value for the folks they're trying to serve. And then you have a lot of folks that do a great job of serving their client base, but they've underdeveloped their capacity to serve the donor interests. And you have to do both, in my view, to be a good nonprofit, to be to be a strategic nonprofit, to be sort of in this for the long game.
So versus someone who has a company, let's say I raised funding for my company, and I have investors, and I'm trying to increase shareholder value. In a nonprofit, it's a little bit different. Like, how do you increase shareholder value, so to speak, in a nonprofit? Like, how do you deliver to the sponsor? Just saying, we are doing really good things. We are growing. Like, what is their ROI, so to speak?
Oh, it's a great question. And I don't think a lot of people spend time understanding the sort of the donor interest. Just because you hang a shingle and say, I'm a not-for-profit, does not mean resources are going to show up. So of those 40,000 veteran nonprofits, as delineated by the IRS, something like 85% of them operate with a budget of less than $100,000 a year. So they are, at best, have one person who's being paid, to sort of do something charitable or in purpose, in nature. So that's the challenge, is that the resources are scarce. For a not-for-profit, dollars donated are very, very different. You have individual donors. I'm just going to give you a few broad categories, because the reality is if you're a not-for-profit, you've got to figure out which of these 6 categories I'm going to give you are you good at securing. And you're not going to be good at all 6. And so you just have to make a strategic decision. This is how we operate.
Good.
So one is small dollar donations. $10. It's a click-to-donate campaign. It's Kickstarter.
Kind of Got it.
Well, Kickstarter, let's put that in a different category.
All right.
Because that's crowdfunding, and Kickstarter sort of is this hybrid of it's charitable, but it's sort of it's structured into like a crowdfunding kind of nature. But so small dollar donors, they donate on the spot and they do it in small dollar amounts, maybe recurring. That's one category. Individual large donors, different category. That's the people that, donate $100,000 and get their name on a building, right? How you cultivate them is very different from how you cultivate, 100 people to give $10 or $100. So small individual dollars, large dollars, foundations, and you have foundations like the Coffin Foundation, which is committed to entrepreneurship, and they have a endowed charter for how they are supposed to deploy the resources that they have. And they have very finite kind of verticals in which to do that. So you have foundations, and then you have like family foundations, which are different than sort of institutional foundations. And then you also have corporate foundations that are very different from, how the companies give money or how families give money. So you have, even within the word foundations, which are organizations that give money out, there's different flavors of what that looks like. And then you have corporate sponsorship or corporate philanthropy. And even within companies that are going to sponsor something, and we get a lot of the resources for Bunker Labs come through corporate sponsorship, corporate partnership. But even within that, some companies are organized to sort of give money through sort of community service outreach, corporate social responsibility, and they have a strategy around that. Some of them do it through their marketing arm. Some of them do it through local market leaders, have the capacity, because they run the DC metro region, they have the capacity and the authority to sort of make the sponsorship decisions. So within a company, how they give out resources for sponsorship or philanthropically is really then contingent on kind of the internal nature of it. So, and then you have government, and you have state government, and you have federal government, and those are all different categories as well. So, and literally, Rich, there's probably 5 or 6 or 10 other categories as well. So to get in and start a not-for-profit, you got to figure out what's the area, the lane in which I'm going to play, and how are we going to really build core capacity to be good at that one thing? Corporate sponsorship from a marketing angle, small individual donors, small dollar individual donors, what have you.
Oh, this is awesome because we just got kicked out of a room, but this is the nature of entrepreneurship. So we don't stop the show. So you just talked about all these different foundations and all these things and entities and where the money comes from. If I am someone listening to this podcast right now, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not starting a nonprofit,
right?
Because that sounds really complicated. Is it as bad as it sounds?
Yeah. No, let me tell you, there's a lot of reasons to start a nonprofit. So, and I give those caveats. Yeah, and you're right, it does kind of sound.
Well, it sounds like a lot of fundraising.
Well, it sounds like, it can sound like a lot of fundraising. What I try to do is, and I think when you're helping people start businesses, part of our job is to lovingly sort of just expand the aperture of what's known. So I think to the extent people can go in with this awareness that, okay, there's lots of different types of fundraising, there's lots of different types of ways to have impact. What I would want to do is prevent somebody from just going in and just launching into creating a not-for-profit and then finding out that in fact it's not the right sort of model for the impact they want to have. Now, having said that, there's lots of great reasons to start a not-for-profit. I think the starting point for this is, what's the problem you're trying to solve? So for example, for Bunker Labs, the problem we're trying to solve is help military veterans and military spouses start businesses. We could have been a for-profit selling services to do that. Yep. But a lot of entrepreneurs, there are actually, but a lot of entrepreneurs don't have the resources to do that. So we would have been limited in our ability to serve that mission. I was more interested in serving folks that don't have the resources, right? And so it turns out that that's a focus thing I want to solve, want to work on, and there's corporate sponsors and partners that share that desire, like USAA and others, that had that desire to want to help impact military veterans as well. So you put it together and say, okay, there's partners that care about it. We have a ability to solve it. And when you find that, then it's really impactful because you get to wake up in the morning and go to work and work on things that matter to you personally, right? So not-for-profits can be hugely impactful, and when you're focused and you figure out the problem that you're trying to solve, then you get to wake up and work on the problem that matters to you and solve it. And so that's the right reason to do it. And lots of folks are starting great nonprofits. I think the key to different key for a successful not-for-profit is to be really focused. So know specifically the impact that you're trying to have and the model by which you're going to have the impact. You really got to have that defined to be an effective nonprofit.
So clearly I'm in the Bunker Labs community. I went through the Veterans and Residents program, so it sounds like I'm partial what I'm about to say, but the veteran nonprofit community, the veteran for-profit community is incredibly oversaturated, in my opinion. There's a lot of redundancy. There's a lot of vets for this, vets for that. I mean, everything. And what I do is really just try and think, like, what can I do? How can I serve differently? What's my unique value proposition, et cetera? For Bunker Labs, or for a nonprofit that you're starting and with your vision, how have you been able to determine the route and the manner and the resources and the people to kind of stand out and really deliver as you guys continue, and continue to grow and grow and grow?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a couple things that matter to me that we've focused on. And number one is we've articulated our values as an organization, and it's a living, breathing calibration for how we operate. And it's really specific stuff. Like, one of our values is we will not host an event that we would not be excited to attend ourselves. Because one of the things I think nonprofits do is they can risk thinking that, well, we're going to help other people. Veterans need this. Mm-hmm. And the minute you sort of shift into that other language, veterans, like it's somebody else, like I'll help them. Like, I don't need this, but they need this, is when I think you go totally afoul. And I think 80% of nonprofits get that wrong.
Wow.
And I think so, because here's the challenge. If you're doing something that's from a legal standpoint charitable, right? The risk is that the not-for-profit can use language like, we're here to help you. But the veteran community is a community that's unbelievably capable unto itself. So even though we're a 501c3, we don't go to market talking about how charitable we are because of our desire to help you. And I think even though, like in the tax code, it's charitable, right? So, and we are helping people, right? But the language around that is super new, is to me important. And I think you see a lot of initiatives that go to market with language that demeans, unintentionally, lovingly, but can demean the veteran or demean the warrior community. And I think, the risk is that that the messaging for that, let's go back to this tension of a nonprofit being a three-sided marketplace. Mm-hmm. Small dollar donors are compelled emotionally to give because they see a person in need. Mm-hmm. So that works in that domain. Yeah. We don't have a sad message at Bunker Labs. So we don't do well with low dollar donor. We have some, but we don't do a lot of low dollar donors because our messaging just isn't that. Yes. It's not an emotional appeal. And typically for low dollar donors, you get those resources from an emotional appeal. What we do have is a strategic appeal to corporate partners to say we're empowering the military community to go out and launch the next greatest generation and build a bunch of businesses. So corporate partners really like that alignment, and I think the veteran community really likes that alignment as well. So I think for us, we always keep the community, like we have deep respect for people that are starting businesses. We don't for a second think that we are smarter. We might be further in the journey, but we very much keep that community, we respect the community. And I think, and we use language that respects the community. And so I think that's a value that we hold, that when and people veterans know the difference. It's like, if you have an event that appeals to their potential and their desire to build businesses, go out, generate wealth for themselves, go out and like solve a problem, run for office, I mean, they'll turn out by the hundreds. But if you have a message which is, hey, you need help with your resume, and we'll show you how, even if veterans do need help with their resume, it's like, it just kind of reeks of like, look, I didn't join the military because I self-identified as like somebody that needs a lot of help. So the messaging to me is really important for not-for-profit. I think it's part of the growth story of Bunker Labs.
I want to ask the question that I know a lot of this audience will be thinking, which is, you keep saying not-for-profit, and we're actually talking about the organization, but the individual still wants to make money. Okay, yes. So I'm getting out and I'm looking at all these options. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go to the traditional workforce. I don't know if I want to go to the traditional workforce. I don't know if I want to just start out as an entrepreneur. And then a nonprofit, I feel like they kind of arrive to that after they've realized, like, wow, I've been in the trenches in this transition. It sucks. I want to serve after service. I want to give back. This is my tribe. It's home, but I need to make money.
Yeah.
What does that look like for the person who is going to dabble with the thought of taking on a nonprofit?
Yeah. Well, here's the awesome thing. Like, you took an oath, or you married somebody that took an oath, and therefore you made a contribution to do something bigger than yourself of service. I think it's that original intent of why you joined in the first place that I think is a lot of what would have you, after wearing the uniform desire to start a business or do something of service again. And it's not surprising. People talk about the 40,000 veteran nonprofits, right, which I talk about. But I think it symbolizes that there's so many people in our community that have a desire to continue to serve. Yep. So I think it's an enormous asset for us. And I think it's a good thing. And I think we got to catalyze the community and help kind of shape the manifestation of what matters to them. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. People get out of the military. Our vision statement for the bunker is to fulfill the dreams of the military veteran community. And I think we've talked a lot about unemployment, and we've made big strides with that. We always have to keep our eye on the ball, but as we solve for unemployment, to me that's like necessary but not sufficient. Sufficient is fulfilling the dreams. And the dreams to me get manifest through starting businesses, starting not-for-profits, starting organizations, pursuing things that matter to us. And even if it's not even before it takes a legal form, being on camera and having a point of view and just leading, like going out into the world. So I think veterans, they have that and that desire. And it's like, my message is like, push on that, keep going with that, right? But then be focused on, like, what's the mechanism? How am I going to channel this, right? And don't get stuck around legal models and stuff like that. Like, go out and solve the problem and then kind of back into the rest.
How do you, if I start a nonprofit tomorrow, battle Band-Aids and they're camouflage Band-Aids, or I don't know what, and people are donating, how do I make money?
Yes, good question.
That's kind of what I was getting at.
Got it.
We're like, look, I could go work for big brand whoever and make money, maybe be miserable, maybe not. I don't have the money to start my own company. Mm-hmm. A nonprofit kind of solves both my needs, but I need to live, I need to eat, I got a family. What happens there?
Yeah, you can pay yourself. I mean, I think there's a misconception that if you're running a not-for-profit that you can't get paid. A good not-for-profit, even a small one, is, it's you generate resources. The resources pay for the organization to run itself, to deliver the program and run the organization, and that's paying for staff. So yeah, I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that are paying people besides themselves. I'm like, but you're running this organization, and they're paying 2 people to run a program, in the community. And I'm like, but what about you? Are you paying yourself? And they'll be like, well, no, I'm not paying myself because I don't want to be overhead. Yeah. And I tell them, you're not overhead. You're the thing that's making this thing work. So you should pay yourself as a leader or an employee of a not-for-profit. People that work in not-for-profits get paid.
Awesome.
And it's a war for talent, So you've got to, you're like an organization like anything else, So you got to have great people. You got to train them, recruit them, develop them professionally, and don't put yourself at risk. I tell entrepreneurs, keeping your own financial continuity is super important. I don't want to give money to a not-for-profit where the founder of the not-for-profit, if she's doing this full-time, isn't getting paid. Because it's the mission is at risk, and so there needs to be financial continuity and stability for the people that work in the organization. Otherwise, the whole thing is at risk. The mission is at risk.
We're going to wrap up there because it's about to get noisy here. But where can people learn more about Bunker Labs? I mean, I know, but I'd like you to tell.
Yeah.
Where do you want us to focus our attention? People who are interested in nonprofits, entrepreneurship, and just kind of at least unlocking some of the fears associated with not going the traditional route, which I know we all fear.
Totally. I get the fear. I had the fear. Come join us at Bunker Labs, bunkerlabs.org. We have chapters in cities across the United States. I think if you're going to start something, I don't care who you are, you need to get some buddies around you. You need to surround yourself with a community. And Bunker Labs is a community. There's other communities available as well. But you need to get yourself in a community. If you want to start something like a not-for-profit, get a mentor who has done it locally. Go shadow that person for a few days. You might find out it's not even interesting
100%.
to you. You might find out you want to work for a not-for-profit, but you don't want to start one. So get with mentors, shadow them, join a community, and then we have a lot of stuff online. If you go to bunkerlabs.org, we have Launch Lab online, and that's a great place to kind of organize your business model canvas and your thoughts, which works for not-for-profit as well, about what are we doing here, and is it going to work? And the chances are, if your heart's pure and you've got a focused desire to solve a specific problem and you have the capacity to do it, you're on to something. The rest is like logos and paperwork, and but you're onto something, and I would love to see more veterans pursue it.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for being on the Leadership Locker. Hopefully a lot of people get value out of this. I know I did, and I'm sure they will, so thank you again.
Thanks, Rich.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Leadership Locker. For more about us, how we can serve you, and for other episodes, please visit richcardonamedia.com/podcast. If you liked this episode a lot or little, please don't forget to subscribe so that way my guests and I can continue to deliver some heat and get you the knowledge that you want. Don't miss an episode, and please join our Facebook group so you get much more exclusive content. Take care.